Hello, and welcome to Success in TV and Streaming Women's Director Symposium, presented by the Golden Globes. I'm KJ Matthews, your moderator and a member of the HFPA. I'm also an award-winning journalist who's covered the entertainment industry for the last 2 decades. I've worked for CNN, Extra TV, as well as ABC, CBS, and a few Fox TV affiliates across the country. Currently, you can see and hear my entertainment segments all over the world on BBC TV and radio, as well as Germany's DW English TV, just to name a few. Now, today you are in for a special treat. We have 3 of the best industry leaders and award-winning TV directors in Hollywood right here. They are going to discuss how they got into directing, some of the best things they've learned thus far, and exactly how they have become the most in-demand directors of all time, really, right now in Hollywood. They're also going to tell us how they were able to kind of navigate that landscape. But before we jump into everything, I just want to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press Association for putting together this enlightening summit. And it's especially during Women's History Month. So just thank you, HFPA, for letting me lead this wonderful conversation. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the stars of our event today. First up is Zetna Fuentes. Now, Zetna has established herself as one of the most in-demand directors, helming many of TV's notable award-winning shows, including The Old Man, Ray Donovan, The Girl from Plainville, and The Great. Most recently, Zetna directed and executive produced episodes of the highly anticipated upcoming Hulu series, Black Cake. She also directed the pilot of Bosch, Legacy, and served as an executive producer on this series as well. Zetna will be making her feature directorial debut with an upcoming film from Amazon. I think it's called by Enio Derbez, 3 Studio. Did I get that right, Zetna?
You got it right.
Great, okay. Next up, we have Salli Richardson-Whitfield. Now, Salli is known probably by many of you as an actress for her performances in Antoine Fisher and I Am Legend. Salli has used her 30 years worth of experience on set and catapulted into the role of director and executive producer. Salli got her start directing on the following shows: Eureka, Queen Sugar, Luke Cage, and she now serves as an executive producer on the Julian Fellows HBO series, The Gilded Age, as well as executive producer and director on the Adam McKay HBO series, Winning Time. Salli also has feature films in development at Universal and Village Roadshow. So welcome, Salli. And last but not least, we have Stacey Muhammad. Stacey has been steadily building momentum as a director, having directed shorts, documentaries, web series. The critically acclaimed director got the attention of Emmy award-winning filmmaker Ava DuVernay, who recently offered Stacey opportunity to direct Queen Sugar multiple times. Stacey has worked on Harlem, Love Life, Bel Air, Manifest, and the new Paramount Plus streaming Cross, which is based on the Alex Cross franchise, which I'm all sure you guys are familiar with. Her feature screenplay, The Reunion, is currently in development with Malcolm D. Lee. Okay, let's get right into it, you guys. We've got a lot of ground to cover. So we are all consuming our shows differently than we were like 5 years ago. So I'm wondering, because we are all consuming it differently, have you guys approached directing differently at all? And that's for all of you. Anyone can go first.
Well, I don't know if personally have approached it differently. I had a particular focus on getting to platforms like HBO, because it gives you more freedom to be a filmmaker. And that was really what drove me in the beginning. I did a lot of network shows in the beginning to learn. It also teaches you how to go fast and be time efficient, but very quickly I knew that I wanted to world build and create and have that time to really show who I am as a filmmaker and being on the bigger platforms like, like Amazon or Hulu or HBO, you get that opportunity.
Wonderful. Zetna, how about yourself?
Yeah, for me, I think also I haven't really changed my approach to directing versus when I'm on different platforms. I really try and let the story dictate the approach to the directing. So if it's going to be on streaming or if it's going to be on network, or for me, it's really about the script and then taking that script and telling that story the best way I can for the story.
Wow. Stacey?
Yeah, same. I mean, I was an indie filmmaker for about 15 years. And so I think, as to Sally's point, what excited me about thinking about working on shows for like an HBO or Amazon was the creative freedom. And being able to be the type of filmmaker that I've been in my indie film career. So I don't think my approach is any different. Like Zetna said, I think it's all about the story. It all starts on the page, but certainly having the creative freedom that you have, I think, in the streaming service is something that I was excited about. Yeah.
Wonderful. So since your approach hasn't changed, do you think that the requirements for what it takes to become a director or to just direct in general have changed for any of you guys?
Jump in,
Salli, either one of you guys.
I mean, the requirements are, to know what you're doing.
That's always been the case, right?
Yeah, I mean, as new people are coming in, sometimes not every, it's weird. I think sometimes, you have to let new people in to learn. And then there are times that they can't quite handle it all. You also have veterans who come in who have become complacent. Yeah. And then they're not ready because they think they can phone it in. And these shows are getting bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. And even in that big show, they still have a certain amount of time. And there are a lot of different skill sets that especially the women on this panel talking about some of the shows that they're doing, that you have to have. You have to be able to deal with big worlds. You have to be able to deal with big talent and personalities that come with that. There's a lot of things to juggle on these particular kind of shows that these women are directing.
You feel the same way, Zetna or Stacey?
Yeah, I think Salli just said it beautifully. I mean, the ultimate requirement is really to know what you're doing. And I think that with the shows that are more ambitious, have bigger scope, more scale, that just hones in on the talent of the director to really do the job and to really do the job well, and to juggle all of these elements that I think get amplified the bigger the show or the more high profile the show, or the talent attached, or if you're shooting internationally. I think all of those elements just make the work of the director and the talent of the director really have to be cemented and know what you're doing.
And I've followed Zetna for a while now. And, she's definitely, she's been doing this a lot longer than I have. And I have, she's the kind of woman that makes it easier for me. And I hope that I'm the kind of woman and director that makes it easy for people coming behind me. Because if she is in that spot, or if I'm running a show and I don't know what and I'm not doing, unfortunately, there's not a lot of us out here. So right. we have to do it better. We have to be more prepared. We have to get along with people more. There's so many boxes that we have to tick off better. And so watching Zetna all this year, I can come in after her and they go, okay, a woman of color can do this because I've seen it before. And I don't have to now make up these steps because the lady who came before me was an idiot. And I know that sounds terrible, but I take it very personally if people of color come in and they don't work as hard as me, because I know that we have to. I mean, it's not unfortunately, that is what it is, but we have to work harder to make sure we don't fail. So the next person is given the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I would say, like I did my first episode of television in 2019. So I've been watching Salli and Zetna for years. And if, it weren't for the positions that they were in, then I wouldn't be here. And the other directors from Queen Sugar and those who, came in more recent years wouldn't have these opportunities. I do think that, one of the things that I'm noticing is like, in addition to the skill that we're talking about, obviously it's also knowing about how to treat people. I think that there's a lot less tolerance after the pandemic for some of the old ways of directing and interacting with people, on set. I think the places are a lot less tolerant of some of the mistreatment. And I think, my experiences have been such that I think that even when people of color prove themselves, that oftentimes there's still this space where there are questions about their ability, and we know that the people who are in the positions of power, who have been hoarding the resources, they're not always there because they're qualified, they're there because of how they look and who they are. And so I think, and of course their skill, but oftentimes it's about privilege, so although I agree with Salli 100%, we have to be prepared. And sometimes that's that extra pressure of knowing you have to be extra prepared to kind of prove yourself. I think that we also have to know that even in those times when we are proving ourselves, there are still people that are questioning us, and we have to move past that and work efficiently despite that.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I just want to say it's so lovely to hear that, Salli. I'm such a fan of your work, and Stacey, the work you're doing. It's inspiring that we can actually, and there's so few of us, that there are even 3 of us working on the types of material that we're working on, hearing about the projects that you have in development and the kinds of shows that we're working on. It's just very, very inspiring. Obviously, much more work to do, because I agree. I think there are those barriers still. The effort that we have to put in to break them down is so extreme sometimes. But again, just these faces here, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to.
And I do think that things are, or maybe it's just, I feel like I've been very lucky that the shows that I've worked on and the people at HBO have been like, I feel really like, I don't want to say heard, but I feel respected, and I feel that my opinion matters there, and they trust me with the shows they're giving, and the producers I'm working with really trust my perspective. I don't, there's always that one person who comes in, but at this point, I think we all know how to shut down that one person.
Exactly. Well, on that point, Salli, this question is actually for you. Now, recently you moved from directing just a few episodes of Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty, to becoming a full-fledged executive producer. So I would love for you to talk about your experience on working on this mostly male sports drama.
Well, yeah. So last season I did the last 2 episodes, and they needed a voice to lead this season, and I don't know, that show just works for me. It's a very hard show. The basketball is very hard. But I played basketball in school. I get it.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you were a sports fanatic, or like you live in LA. So have you always been a Lakers fan before you took up
Lakers? I'm from Chicago, probably was more of a Bulls fan, but I know basketball. I know it enough that I could bring that skill set there. I am not a very passive person. So dealing with all those, and I'm kind of a guy's gal, I know how to be a coach. I know how to be a mama when I need to be. I know how to be a wife when I need to. I know how to yell at you and you be my, what I mean? It's like, I just think that show just fits in my wheelhouse. And again, when we talk about all the things you need to run particular kinds of shows, that's a big, heavy cast of people. And there's a different way you have to deal with movie stars or just people who've been in the business a long time. And then you have these young actors who've never done anything, who need someone, they need an actor's director who can really help them do those performances. Then you have to be able to do, we have these basketball sequences with 1,000 extras. There's a lot going on. Can you handle these big things? And can you handle behind the scenes of those HBO executives and these big producers? It's a big kind of whirlwind. Right now, all of a sudden, I was ready for all those things.
Wow.
And I really love the show. It's and still I was thinking today, I've learned so much more. You keep learning, and I've learned so much on this show. It's been exciting, the amount that I've learned doing this show that I can take with me onto the next thing I do.
Wow, that's great to hear. Very great. I had wondered when I saw that, I said, this is a lot of basketball. And I was wondering, I'm like, I wonder if Salli was a fan of basketball before she got into it. That was just a thought that kind of popped in. Stacey, this question's for you. So I know you worked on the own TV series, Queen Sugar, obviously, and they've had a lot of female directors. I believe Ava DuVernay said that she had mostly all the seasons were dominated by female directors. If I'm right, about that, am I? You were, okay, yeah.
All of them were directed, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm assuming that the rest of the experiences that you had in directing probably have not been all female sets. And I'm wondering what it was like to have that experience on Queen Sugar, where pretty much the majority of the people who are around you look like you.
It's an extremely enjoyable experience. I mean, I think one of the things that I love about indie filmmaking is like you can curate your experience and you choose who you can work with. I think one of the things I loved about the culture of Queen Sugar is that I think for most of the women, it was our first time directing television. And so it wasn't just, what Ava had set in terms of where her mindset was, but the crew and the producers and everyone was very nurturing to the fact that most of these women had been, they were our first time directing television. I mean, I think, it took me about a year to get my second and third episode. And I did like 2, 3, 4, and 5 for Tracy Oliver, a year later. And I think initially after doing Queen Sugar, I was like, oh my God, this felt so much like home. I wasn't quite sure what another show would feel like. And so I find there are just more women directing, across the board. So of course, I'm not I'm not usually on shows where there are all women like Queen Sugar, but oftentimes I am on shows where there are other women, where there are other Black directors. I find that the lineup of directors is way more diverse than it was before, Queen Sugar came along and provided all these opportunities for women.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure you learned so much. And that sisterhood on that set must be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I kind of am dialing into the Queen Sugar sisterhood now that the show is wrapped. And, there was like all the celebrations with the wrapping of the show and all the women, or many of the women coming together and being in communication with one another and just kind of sharing stories and resources. And, I wasn't coveting television. I mean, I was happily an indie filmmaker. I mean, I think, of course, I wanted more opportunities, but I was very careful about, saying I want to be in a safe space as a Black woman director. Right. And so when Queen Sugar came along, I was like, this feels like home. And I wanted the other shows that I went into to feel like home. And thankfully, most of them have, like Salli said, it really is about like juggling all these different things, but I've had great success, with the actors, with the producers and all the different people that I've had a chance to work with. And I'm very proud to say that it started on Queen Sugar.
That's great. Zetna, can you talk about your experience directing I think it was the Miguel episode on This Is Us. I believe I heard that the show star, John Werthas, handpicked you because he thought you could more accurately portray the Puerto Rican immigrant experience. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, happily. I had done one episode of This Is Us early on in the second season. And this last year was their final season. And I hadn't gone back to work on the show. I'd been busy, and lovely of them. They'd asked several times. And I had always been a fan of the show, and I loved my experience. The cast is phenomenal. The storytelling is phenomenal. And the working environment, like Stacey has talked about and Salli has talked about, very, very collaborative, very encouraging, very supportive. So I happened to be in a parking lot on the Paramount lot, and walking to get to my car. I was working on a different show, and John ran out of his trailer and came and hugged me. And we hadn't seen each other in a really long time. And literally in that parking lot, he told me about the Miguel episode that was written and was coming up in the final season. It was going to be a standalone episode that finally told that character's backstory, how he got to America, and tie in just really all these wonderful threads in the final season. It was the third to last episode that aired. And so it was one of those kind of kismet magical moments. I was available. I said to him, no way, I'm sure you have someone already. He said, no, we don't have anyone. It has to be you. It needs to be you. I'm going to call Dan Fogelman right now. And it was lovely. Everything kind of fell together. I called my agents. I said, I just ran into John Huertas. He wants me to do this. I'd love to do it. They sent me the script. And I had one of the best experiences I've had in not only a long time, I would say in like this entire kind of journey of directing in television. It was beautiful. They gave me so much kind of creative freedom to cast, to put Afro-Latinos on screen, to make that family feel like it really was his family, his story. It was really, really beautiful.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm wondering, when you guys, all three of you, when you sign on to a project, do you often think about the gender of the audience that you're going to be kind of talking to through your directing at all?
I don't know. I don't think about that. I think now it goes back to story. It really is just about the story. But I would like to, what Zetna just said about it, our perspectives are so important to tell stories differently.
Right.
And although anyone can, I could have come in and direct that show and been fine, but there would have been some nuances that I would have missed because I'm not an Afro-Latina, and that's why it's so important when we come in to tell stories. On Winning Time, there are a lot of Black players, and there's Black, Magic's family, and there's just a different sensibility I'm going to bring about that Black family in that house because I understand it and I get it, which gives it that one more layer of the onion. So again, but back to your question, no, it's all about telling the story. And I think that's what we would all approach everything about. What is the story and that I'm trying to tell?
How about Stacey, Zetna? You guys feel the same way or concur?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is all about what happens on the page. It starts on the page. I mean, John Singleton is one of my favorite directors, obviously. And so I would say, maybe any filmmaker could have made Baby Boy, but would it have been the Baby Boy that it is if John Singleton hadn't made that movie? So the specificity, it feels like LA, it moves like LA, it smells like LA because John Singleton made that movie. I'm very particular to stories being told about New Orleans. I'm born and raised in New Orleans, right? And so you have people that are obviously very enamored with New Orleans, but to be a part of that culture, to be born and raised in it, right? I mean, that's to Salli's point. The perspective is so important. Those nuances, to be born and to live in a culture and have an opportunity to tell the story. That's an amazing opportunity to do something like that. Yeah.
And that's really what you were talking about, Zetna, and your experience in working with John on This Is Us. You're pretty much echoing what they said.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's what, both Salli and Stacey are talking about. It's that ability to provide a real insight, real point of view. And again, it's these like the specificity, the layers, the beautiful nuance that we can each speak to when we're approaching these stories because of our lived experience, because of who we are. And it makes the story, pop, it soars. It's really, it's important. You can feel it. Sometimes you can't, exactly write it out, spell it out, but you can feel it, like exactly what Stacey's talking about. You watch something and you know that it's operating on another level. And I think that's what we all aspire to do. I mean, it's coming from the script, but we're bringing our real, our emotional, our intimate point of view.
Because obviously other directors, a white director can direct, anybody can direct anything. It's easier for us, people of color, to direct, I'd say mostly white shows, because that's what we live in, that society. We watch it on TV, everything. All of our friends we get it. But for them to jump on the other side and then tell our reality is a little harder because they don't get to see it on TV that much. They don't have as many friends that are Black or anything. You don't know what that household is. So it's important to have different perspectives.
Right. Sticking with that same theme, equity, inclusion, and diversity have become buzzwords, whether you like it or not, in Hollywood. So I'm wondering, on all the projects that you guys have worked on, have you just known, has there ever been a project where you knew you were hired probably because you're a woman? You just knew it right off the bat, no matter what the project was. Have you guys ever felt that, or just to kind of feel a certain amount of, I don't want to say a quota, but they just wanted a woman in that role? And maybe earlier in your career, you guys have run into that. Has that ever been a case for either of you?
I would say in the beginning of my career, definitely. Listen, for me, I just want a chance to get in there and prove myself. So in the beginning, do I know that, yeah, I check some boxes. I'm a woman, I'm Black, bring her in. Great. All I did was use that to be stellar and learn. And now like in the position that I'm in, I know that that's a bonus. Yes, she is Black and she's a woman. It does check these boxes. But now I know that's not why I was hired. I know I was hired because I really am the best person for the show. And then there's a cherry on top. But, we have to continue to do that because that's the only way you get an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, you have to be at the table. You have to be at the table. And if that's the way you get in, for sure, you definitely have to be at the table.
Well, it's the same way a lot of other filmmakers in the past have learned. They're somebody's brother, they're somebody's friend. And hey, let me give you a shot. I know you don't know everything yet, but you'll learn. This is the only way you're going to learn. It's the same for us.
Correct. Stacey, do you echo that?
Yeah, I do. But again, I started in 2019, so I think that by the time I did my first episode of television, these conversations were happening. And so people are a lot more intentional about the spaces. They're more intentional about the directors that they are hiring. And I think, it's a genuine thing. Like, I've been on shows where people are like, yeah, we definitely want to make sure that it's diverse in front of and behind the camera. We want to make sure, that our directors as well as our crew are diverse. So I think that since, everything happened with Queen Sugar, and this has been more of a conversation, that there are more producers and studios that are saying, hey, this is something that we need to look at. We need to correct this. We need to look at these systems. I mean, really systems of oppression here, because when I think about it, I don't just think about, the directors, the people who haven't had the opportunity. Again, I say it all the time. We're talking about a hoarding of wealth and resources, generations of that, right? And so I think that people being much more honest and outspoken about it, they're putting people to task. They're asking why. And a lot of people are stepping up to the plate and saying, we have to do better. Yeah.
Wow. Zetna?
Yeah, I think Stacey and Salli have said it so beautifully. I mean, when I started, I similarly to Salli, I knew those moments when I was the ticking of the box. And it wasn't in this era of these last few years where I think what Stacey's talking about has this shift, which is hopefully a real opening and understanding that it's not that we're asking for something other than the same opportunity that everyone has had before us. Because yes, I love that, Stacey, the hoarding. So these last few years where it's a real shift in looking at women and women of color coming in and getting the same opportunity, not asking for a handout or anything differently, the same opportunity that has been afforded everyone before us. But when we started, it was different. It wasn't, I don't think, with that mindset. It was, we have that one slot that has to go to a woman or a person of color. And so I, like Salli, I welcomed it. Even though I knew that's what it was, I thought, give me that opportunity, open that door, I'll take it, I'll go in and I'll smash it. And then let the work speak for itself. But without those doors opening, without that opportunity, it's hard to go in and do the work. So I took any opportunity that was before me.
And let's be clear, the numbers still aren't great.
Oh,
There is a misconception
yes.
at various functions with we'll just say the directors who have had all the jobs for all these years, that all of a sudden we're taking all their jobs, and we're still a very small percentage. So that is not true. It's not reality. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Salli. It's so important because these like very detailed surveys come out, and you look at, especially for us, when I look at those numbers for women of color directors, that's 2%, 3%. I mean, a blip. You're absolutely right. You know, this what's happened in the last few years is a shift. But yeah, absolutely, the numbers are still tiny.
I don't know about you, but I've literally had some white male directors say to me, well, must be great to be you right now. I can't work at all. And I'm like, dude, if you're not working, it's because you're not good. You still get most of the jobs. And what's been weeded out are the weak directors. And now those jobs are going to people, to diversity, to give people a shot. But if you're good, you're still working, I'm not taking your job.
Yeah.
Sure.
That kind of
And I think that when I say like hoarding of wealth and resources, then we also have to think about the lack of educational opportunities as well. So when we talk about people of color, Black directors primarily not being prepared, right? Then when would they really have gotten the opportunity to prepare? Because a lot of this, I mean, some of it you learn in film school, a lot of it you learn on the job. You get better and better as you go. Right. I mean, you ask the questions, and, you know, there are other directors that have been doing it longer than you that you can reach out to. But some of this you literally learn as you go. And I know that many of the white male directors, they've messed up. They've been given other opportunities. Right. So I think, you know, it has to be people who are in certain positions who are willing to say we have to make these systemic changes, because we cannot say that Black directors aren't prepared if we aren't providing the opportunities for them to prepare.
That, you know, that segues perfectly into my next question was, and you guys were talking about it already, but what is the most challenging aspect of your job? Because I used to think it was just kind of you juggling all these balls and coming there prepared and no one really looking like you. But it sounds like some of the comments that are said too by people that don't look like you, that aren't the same sex, are also part of the most challenging part of your job. Am I right about that or wrong?
Well, I wouldn't say that's, you know, most people have common sense, you know. I'm not getting that all the time. You know, every once in a while, somebody, you know, you go, do you hear how you sound?
Right.
But there are so many things that are challenging with TV that you can't just put, you know, it may be scripts coming in late. It may be just, again, them wanting this scene that would be in a $50 million movie, but you now have a few days and they want it to look that good. There are just so many challenges in TV. The bigger the show, the more prepared you have to be. And the bigger the show, the more collaborative you have to be. And I think that I remember when I was first starting out and doing Queen Sugar, I was very controlling, and, you know, you think you have to know where every shot and where the camera's going to be. At least I did. I was like, no, the camera's here. And then once it gets so big, it really has to become, no one is doing a Marvel movie by themselves. Right. Like you know, you're the leader of it, but you have to learn how to work with people. I think that might be it. How do you work with all these different personalities and the people, the doubters, you know?
Yeah, the personalities are probably the most challenging thing, because you go on set and you don't know what you're going to get in terms of personalities, but you know that you're kind of guiding that ship and you've got to be responsible for making sure that it all comes together despite the personalities.
Because it lands on our shoulder no matter what.
Yeah. Zetna?
Yeah, I think that last point's really interesting, because especially when you're coming in just to do an episode of television, if you're not staying on, or you're not the executive producer, or your job is to come in and do that one story, it's such a limited amount of time that you have to jump right in and lead the ship, like what we're talking about. So, you know, from day one, you're have to answer all these questions and meet everyone, and heads of departments and the showrunner and the cast, and you're juggling all of this, and it's wonderful. It's our job. But in TV, when you're coming in for that short amount of time to really establish yourself as having a strong point of view, being in control, being in charge, but being able to collaborate, receive information, shift, pivot if you have to, all of that has to happen very, very quickly. And news travels really fast. I've heard this so many times. From the first day you arrive in your prepping office, everyone's talking about you already. Oh yeah, she's on it. She knows what she's doing. She answered my questions. I have my marching. Everyone wants to know what it's going to be like to work with you for those next few weeks. So that first day, that first impression with meeting everyone is really important, setting the tone. And it's a lot to do when you're just jumping in and don't know anyone. But it's that first day is really important, and it can be a really big challenge.
And they are judging you.
Yes.
They are watching, because we all know at this point, you can tell if someone knows what they're doing by just simple things. And then your first day on the set, it's the same thing. The crew is like, they're watching those first few setups and how you're talking, and how you're giving your notes, and then they're like, and then they'll go, okay, we're good. Or they're already, when I was an actress, I could tell when a director came on, and then if they didn't have it, they'd walk away. I'd be like, oh, this is going to be a long episode. Yeah. And I've only talked to you for 10 minutes.
Wow. Well, that's the wonderful thing you have going for you too, Salli, is that you've been in front of the camera and behind the camera. So you can spot it, initially very quickly, rather.
I could hear one thing. I can hear the director talking to a DP next to me going, so what do you think we should do? And I'm like, oh boy. He don't know what to do. Oh no.
Stacey, what are your first few days when you sign onto a project? What's that first 1 to 2 days like?
It's everything Salli and Zetna just said, getting to know everyone. I think it's an interesting balance though, because she's right. You want people to know that you know what you're doing. You want everyone to feel comfortable with you, to know that you have a vision, to know that you are, a leader. But I think that, for me, I also think about the fact that everyone there is an artist. So that's where the collaboration comes in for me. The DP's an artist, the camera ops are artists, obviously the production designers are artists, the actors obviously are artists. I started out as a ballet dancer. And so, I've spent a lot of time on stages using my body as a vessel for someone else's story. So I think that has given me somewhat of an edge. I'm sure Salli has that edge from being an actor, but giving me somewhat of an edge to communicate with the actors. Because I think a lot of times, ironically, there's some forgetting that we're here because they're going to step in front of those cameras at some point. So it's very important for me that they never feel like robots, so it's just a balance. There's so many things to balance, but I definitely want to make sure, obviously that the crew and everyone that's on board, is comfortable with me as a director, but then I'm also being collaborative and thinking about them as artists as well.
I would say as an actress, probably 95% of the directors who directed me in TV or did not direct me. They were just there to, where's the camera going to go? That, like most of the time we'd be moving on. I'd be like, well, I guess that was good. Nobody, no one gave me any notes. So let's keep moving. So that was very helpful for me as a director to know what I didn't want to be.
Yeah. And I find that to be horrifying, actually. When I talk to producers and they ask me how I want to work with the notes, I say I have to be able to go and say something to the actors first. Even if I go over and say, hey, good job, I'll be right back. You know what I mean? I need your notes. I need a beat for your notes so that I can go and say something to them. There's something highly disrespectful about them giving their all in front of the camera. And then we call cut, and then we're having a conversation over here. And it happens so often. And I don't know what can be done about it, but I just really make sure that that's not who I am. It's not who I am as a person, so it's certainly not who I am as a director.
Yeah. I know, Salli, in a previous interview, I remember you saying that you let people shadow you on set. And we were just talking about the fact that there's a lack of women of color, particularly directing in Hollywood. And I'm wondering, do you feel it's even more necessary to let women of color, especially aspiring directors, shadow you while you're on set?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. It's it's a game changer. It's how I learned. I shadowed TV director Eric Lonneville, who I always loved his work. I loved his demeanor on set. And, you know, you can go to film school all day and do all these things. When you're on a real set, it's completely different and you learn so much. And I also have them come through post with me while I'm editing. That's where you find out if you got what you needed or what you didn't miss or all the little tricks that you can learn afterwards. So it's important to be there for every step. My assistant right now is a young filmmaker. She's learning so much because she's a Black girl. She's able to be on set with me all the time, and just even seeing the background, you know, how I have to deal with the producers and talking to certain actors. She's seeing how, you know, the really big picture. So yes, it's COVID kind of messed up a lot of things. I don't know. I always had someone shadowing me, and unfortunately, because of COVID, that's been kind of locked down. But yeah, it's anytime you can mentor someone.
Yeah, I would think that would be great, especially now that everybody's kind of getting back out into the swing of things. I mean, you still have to wear masks certain times, but at least people are getting back out into everything. Stacey, I'm just wondering, just because you have directed different genres, I mean, you've gone from comedy to drama, and I'm wondering, do you change your style of directing when you change your genre that you're directing?
Not so much. No, not really. I mean, I haven't done a lot of action, you know what I mean? So I think that there's some specificity to like something that's heavy in terms of action or special effects, but in terms of drama and comedy, for me, not really. I mean, again, it's all about what's on the page. And so I'm looking for like the emotional beats and what's going to resonate primarily with the audience. A show like Love Life, for instance, like a comedy drama, you know, the kind of shows, kind of the genre that I enjoy the most that I've done thus far, you know, where it's like the comedic beats are comedic beats and they allow the dramatic beats to be drama, you know what I mean? And that's what I enjoy the most, but my process is the same.
Zetna, I think you've worked on a couple of Shonda Rhimes shows, and she is just like a great supporter of increasing opportunities for women, and particularly women of color. And I know you've directed a number of her episodes of her various shows, and I was wondering if you can kind of talk about your experiences working with her shows.
Yeah, I haven't. It's interesting. I haven't worked on Shondaland's show in a few years now, and every once in a while, I think I miss them. I feel like that is a family that I have, and that support came to me very early on, and is not lost on me because, again, we're talking about a time period. Like I joined the DJ in 2007, and then I started directing episodic, over 11 years ago. And at that time, what we're talking about was these really trying to get in the door and get these opportunities was, as it is now, very difficult, then extremely, extremely difficult. And I found just Shonda Rhimes herself inspiring. I mean, I think everything that she was doing continues to do. Like, think about, what's happening with Bridgerton and just her approach to the work and what she puts on screen and the teams that are behind the scenes and what they're doing to put that on screen, to me, is exceptional because the stories are wonderful. The work is wonderful. She's operating at such a beautiful level of storytelling, and then to really push and give opportunity and give people that platform to work and to shine. Again, for me as a director, when I got Grey's Anatomy was my first Shonda Rhimes show. I was in the pinch myself world, and then to do Scandal and to do How to Get Away with Murder, and to work with that caliber of actors. I've worked with Viola Davis, Kerry Washington, the late Cicely Tyson. Like, it was just dreams that were made because there was a person who's, she's so smart and has so much wonderful power and uses it. So yeah, for me, working at Shondaland was a treat and excited to get back there. It's been a while.
Wow, that's great. I'd love to know if you guys can talk about like your next big project that you're excited about.
Okay, I'll go. No one's talking.
Yeah. Feel free.
Actually, I don't know. It might, I have 2 features that I'm working on, I'm learning the feature world. The feature world moves real slow. So you just like, okay, I'm waiting for a green light here, trying to find cast here to get the green light. So, you know, me trying to get a feature for me, or trying to get the feature actually started would be my next step. I don't know if like with both of my shows, with the Gilded Age and Winning Time,
Mhm.
it's all about, is it coming back next year? I
Yeah.
don't. So for me, it's more about just growing every year. I'm very ambitious, and I want and just excited about learning new things and just growing. It's just, you know, and getting to do bigger and better things.
Well, good to hear that. What about you, Zetna?
Zetna, come on, Zetna. What?
Salli, I love everything Salli says, and Stacey, I'm like, I want to just say the same thing. You just said it so beautifully. For me, it's that same thing. I've never made a feature. So I started out in theater in New York, and then I did daytime soaps and now episodic. And for me, the sort of goal is to do that. I love movies. I know, you know, a lot of movies don't even make it to the movie theater, but for me, sitting in a theater and the lights go down in the beginning, middle, and end, and you know, I don't have my phone is off, and just to be sort of transported and the opportunity to tell a story like that. I've not done it. I've not done a movie. So that's the thing that I'm most excited about. And a lot too, like Sally's saying, because it's a challenge for me. It's an experience that I want to have so that I can continue to grow and continue to tell stories in that way, in a different way. So that's the thing I'm most excited about.
Stacey, what do you have on your plate? I'm sure multiple things, but what's the next?
Wow. So right now I'm directing a block of the Cross series for Amazon, starring Aldous Hodge. Really excited about that. It's a thriller, which is kind of setting me up for the feature that I have in development with Malcolm D. Lee's company that I wrote and will direct, that he will produce. I worked with Malcolm on The Best Man. And so, you know, we speak a lot about Ava DuVernay, and she deserves so much credit, obviously, for the careers of many women directors. But, you know, it's also been Malcolm D. Lee for me. Zetna mentioned, obviously, Shonda Rhimes, you know, Whoopi Goldberg, Tracy Oliver. There's so many people working behind the scenes, you know what I mean? And sometimes we don't hear as much about what they're doing. But I got that first episode on Queen Sugar through Ava, obviously, but my second, third, fourth, and fifth episode came through Tracy Oliver on recommendation of Malcolm D. Lee. And so they've been in my corner for many years. And now my first feature will be with Malcolm as well.
Congratulations on all your success, all three of you. Before we leave, I have one last question I'd like to ask for you, particularly for the people that are watching. What is the best advice all of you have for the next generation of directors?
I'm not going first this time.
Either of you can go first. There's nobody first in line. It can go Zetna, I'm sorry, Stacey.
I'll go first, and then I'll know I want to echo what Stacey and Salli say after they talk. I think for me, it's to pursue it with all you've got, like to just really. I know people say that, but if you have to, you know, be just single-minded about it. You have to tell the stories, and even if you're, you know, that aspiration is to work in television or tell the feature. It's to do everything to get to that point. Do your shorts, work, you know, assist. I was assistant. I was an intern. I wanted to be on set. I shadowed. I spent many years shadowing. You know, I wanted this so badly. I wanted to be able to tell stories. And I think if that's the dream, if you really, really want to direct, then you have to pursue it with everything you have, and dot connect and strategize and be able to pivot and be open-minded and learn. And I think you have to pursue it with everything you have.
And then once you're shooting, be fearless. You know, you have to have a point of view and believe that the vision, that beautiful picture that you have in your head of what this scene should look like is right. Because you'll have people around you who go, yeah, but well, why don't you, you know, who try to divert your attention from what you know the truth of that scene is, and then knowing when you need to listen.
Right.
It's a hard balancing because you're new and you don't know everything.
Mm.
So how do you get what you need and still be open-minded to listen to people who may know more and can help you, and in particular in the beginning?
Right. Stacey?
Yeah, when I think about like women on their way, on that journey, I mean, it sounds cliche, but I would say really enjoy the journey, to not feel pressured. I say this all the time. Like, I have a sister that's a physician. I never ask her when she's going to be medical director of the hospital where she works, right? There's a lot of pressure on artists. You know what I mean? Like, when are you going to do this and when are you going to do that? So I think it's really important to take care of your mental and spiritual health along the way on the journey, and to lose the sense of desperation. I just think from an energetic perspective, you attract when you're more in a space of abundance, despite how challenging it would be. So I say lose the desperation, know that what's for you is for you, work extremely hard and take care of yourself, because this is not an easy position to be in, even though it's a place of privilege, you know what I mean? It's not many of us doing it, and we need to stay in a place of gratitude, but we also need to take care of ourselves. Yeah.
You're right. This is the only business. You'd be doing all these TV shows. Yeah, but when you're doing a feature.
Exactly. Right.
Oh, all just sage advice from all you uber successful ladies. And I just want to thank you, Salli, Stacey, and Zetna, for all the wisdom that you've imparted on all of us today. Really appreciate it. The HFPA is so grateful to each and every one of you. I also want to thank the HFPA for putting on this event and allowing me to lead the discussion. I really, really, really appreciate it. Now, I'm sure that some of you will want to go back, take notes, and watch this entire session again. You can do that because it will be on the Golden Globes YouTube channel a little bit later. But I just want to thank you for watching today, and thank our panelists so much for taking time out of their very busy schedules. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.